Remember that one time I was like, hey, I have weird hair, but everybody was like, no, it looks really good. So I tried it again and ended up looking like Shirley Temple's evil twin. Welcome to today. Kim here, and I read a book. That's normal. I recently read The Beat on Ruby Street by Jenna Zark. I was sent this book in exchange for an honest review. All my reviews are honest. And I'm happy to review it because I actually super duper loved it. The Beat on Ruby Street is a middle grade novel about a girl named Ruby, and she lives in Greenwich Village in the beat generation. She loves like the poetry and the beat poetry and that sort of bohemian, against the man, against the institution sort of lifestyle, and oh goodness, it's so much fun. On her way to a poetry reading by her beloved Jack Kerouac, she's mistakenly arrested for stealing fruit. Suddenly her life has changed because now she's dealing with social workers, and now she's dealing with trouble, and now she's dealing with the man, and this whole book is just about her dealing with that and the things that are happening, the things that are shifting, and just her future that's at stake. I loved everything about this book. Like, I just loved so much about this book. This is one of the best books I've read this year, you guys. Like, the voice of this book is so fantastic, and the style of this book is fantastic, and the characters in this book are just so cool and unique. It was good, just so good. I gave this book an overall score of 17 out of 20. It got 5 stars on Goodreads. Like, that is how much I liked it, okay? And you know I don't like stars. If you don't know that I don't like stars, you're gonna want to check out this video about how I rate books because it's informative-ish. Beat on Ruby Street got a 17 out of 20 on my own weird scoring system. The writing and style got a 4 out of 4. The characters got a 4 out of 4. The story got a 4 out of 4. The pacing got a 3 out of 4. And the ending got a 2 out of 4, giving it an overall score of 17 out of 20. Let's start with the writing and style of this book. The writing and style got a 4 out of 4. It was so cool. The author's unique voice came through. You really felt like you were right in Ruby's head and experiencing all this stuff with Ruby. The way this book was written, you really got the perspective of an almost 12-year-old girl. Like, it just was so dead on with her kind of vernacular and the way she defines things and just the way she talks about things. The way the author took Ruby's feelings and defined them in the way an 11-year-old girl would was perfection. Like, I just felt like a kid reading this book. And I know that if an actual 11-year-old were to read this book, they'd feel the same way. They'd think, yes, that's how I feel about stuff. It was so refreshing and so cool and just brilliantly done. The characters got a 4 out of 4. Ruby was fantastic. She was relatable, she was spunky, she was feisty. She really fights for what she believes in, but logically. Like, she isn't completely irrational. I mean, she's irrational in a way that an 11-year-old is. She's not just a brazen fighter. Like, she has reasons, and she stands up for those reasons. She doesn't take crap. She was just a really cool protagonist, and I would read 1,000 books from Ruby's perspective. It was so cool. Everyone in Ruby's life is also unique. You know, you've got her parents that are unconventional and sort of bohemian, for lack of a better word, and you've got her teachers slash mentors that she does her schooling with that have their own points of view and perspectives and everything, and you've got the social worker that she deals with, and you've got these other kids that she meets later on, and that all have unique personalities, that are all themselves, and that are all different, and that all totally lack in cliche. There really was a strong risk of having cliche characters in this book because it's so the beat generation in New York City, you know, and this sort of stand up against the man kind of mentality that really could fit into a stereotype. And I really felt like it didn't. I really felt like you understood where these people were coming from, and you understood that they wanted to live a different way. It was really cool to see their perspectives in a very real way. They were all well-rounded. They all had flaws. Like, nobody was perfect. It just, mwah, oh, so good. The story also got a 4 out of 4. I thought that it was a fantastic plot. Interesting things happened. It kept me 100% engaged the entire time. It had me on the edge of my seat. It had me reading chapter after chapter at night. I didn't want to put it down. It was unique and it was quirky, but it was also like a real story. It was also a story that kids that live outside conventional homes have. It was relatable on that way. No one's normal. No one has a normal family. No one has a normal life. And this story really brought that home. The story really was about unconventional ways to live your life and the pros and cons that go along with that. Everything that happened just kind of was exciting and was interesting, and like I said, it kept my attention, and it really was a page turner. I really did not want to put this book down at all. The pacing got a 3 out of 4 because I felt like the second half of the book just got a little bit sudden is the best way to say it. It happens late enough that I don't want to give a spoiler, so I'm not going to give any details, but just the way the pacing changed a little over halfway, 2/3 of the way through the book, it shifted a little bit in the pacing, which I didn't love, but by no means did it distract from the story or to distract from my reading experience. I just noticed it a little bit, that I kind of felt like a shift in the pacing of the story and in the storytelling. I felt like was just a little bit different in the last 1/3 of the book, so I did knock a point off for pacing. But by no means did it move too fast or too slow. It just shifted a little bit in the way it did move. So it did lose a point just because of continuity. It was middle grade, so of course it moves pretty quickly, which is really great. I gave the ending a 2 out of 4 just because I felt like it was a little bit abrupt. I like when there's closure at the end of a book, but I don't like when the closure comes too much too quickly. I just felt that it kind of wrapped up a little too quickly, and that it's just a personal pet peeve of mine. I like almost a full end chapter. Like, I even like a sort of conclusion at the end of the book where you kind of get a little bit of the after. And it's not that this book required that, it's just that for me, I like to have a lot of closure, and I really like the ending to almost drag out a little bit so that I feel kind of satisfied at the end. And I felt like this one sort of wrapped up in just the last few pages, and I just, me personally, needed a little more to really finish it off. And unfortunately, I didn't quite get that with the ending, so I had to knock it down a few points, which sucks, but that it is what it is, unfortunately. Yeah. Overall, this book was fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. It just talked about some really cool themes and some really cool ideas and some really cool perspectives, and it was very refreshing and it was very unique, and the voice in this book just makes it worth reading. Like, it was so good. A big thank you to Aurora Publicity for sending this to me. I'm so glad I read it. I feel like my life's a little better having read this book. I cannot recommend it enough to both middle grade readers, people who like to read middle grade, and just grown-ups that want a good book, because really this book could appeal to any age range. This book was good enough that people that don't normally read middle grade would like it. I really think that. So cool. The voice and the message in this book was beautiful and wonderful and fun and entertaining, but also kind of life-affirming, if that makes sense. Like, it really just makes you feel better having read it, and I am so glad I did. That's gonna do it for this review. If you want to check out The Beat on Ruby Street, there'll be a linky link in the description below. Consider subscribing to this YouTube channel if you haven't already, because I like to talk about stuff. Thanks for watching!